Welcome to the first in a series of videos where we're going to go through every single design in SquareForge, and I'm going to show you how you can build it yourself. Yes, you've heard that correctly. I'm more than happy to give away pretty much every design, every idea in this kit. This has been built up in about 11 years of using Squarespace, but most of them have been more recently with the Fluid engine. And we've got pretty much designs for just about every occasion. Things with box outlines, with text in the middle, call to action buttons, short text. So this is all using some pretty standard ChatGPT placeholder content for a consultancy company. And then as we look through some of the content options, we can see all of these. In this tutorial, I'm going to start with the Hero Classic section. There's about 300 different layouts on SquareForge at the moment. It's going to take me a little while to get through every single design. But what I'm going to try and do is see how many I can do in about 15 minutes or so. Instead of just creating one hero section in this video, for example, we're going to try and create at least a few of these. And I'm going to be skipping back and forth between the layouts as shown here, and I'm not going to cheat by starting with this layout design. And then we're going to head across to our demo site, which has got all of the SquareForge layouts already. And as we can see by just changing our brand styles, colors, etc., that this is all being updated to match the new brand toolkit. That happens out of the box with SquareForge, but as I said, you don't have to purchase it. You can just rebuild these layouts yourself, and that's what we're going to be doing here. So what I've done is I've taken the liberty of creating a demo page for a fictional bakery that I've used for previous tutorials. We use them for our design bootcamps as well. And what we're going to do is create a new hero section each time for this site. We're going to be focusing on this section here. So the hero, sometimes called a superhero or a hero section, is the billboard. So you've got 3 seconds to get your main message across. In this case, freshly baked bread with a tagline. We're going to reuse this content as much as we can. We're just copying and pasting it in. But what we are going to be doing is creating the section from scratch. We've got a bit to get through, so let's crack on. I'm going to go into edit this demo site, and then I'm going to add section, and I'm going to add a blank section. So we're going to start from scratch with every single one of these. Once I've created one, I'm probably just going to start adapting it to show you how the other layouts are put together, if that's okay. So we've got a dotted vertical line. I will need to just go and steal the code for that section. In fact, I could just do it from scratch. And we've got the button here and the title. Only a handful of sections require custom code, which is built into SquareForge. And trust me to pick the one of those to start off with. I'm getting rid of that photo on the right. And now, I did say I was starting from scratch, didn't I? Okay, please forgive me. I'm going to start editing the section. We're going to choose a background image. Even though we can see it's a blank background, the idea is it's designed to be a boilerplate template so we can put our own images in place. So here we're going to get one that was already used in this library. Something that will do the job quite nicely. I think we're going to go for this one again. Challenges we've got with this one is the photos in the center. So I'm going to show you now just to offset it to the right. So we can go into edit, and in the photo editor, I'm going to change it to 16:9. Which is going to be closer to the ratio that we're after. And then I'm going to crop the image in. Hopefully there's a high enough resolution so we're not going to lose any quality. So that photo then, or the detail of the photo will be off to the right, freeing up space now for us to put our text on the left. We can see it's got a really light fuzzy overlay. So first of all, we're going to go to the darkest setting. And that will put a darker overlay over top of the image. And if we go to background, this is where we can increase the overlay opacity. So we can see it's got this gray overlay. So I believe that's the darkest color. But if we go for bright, for example, we could probably turn that into black background, but we're going to go with that. Okay, now we've got our image. Let's add our title. I'm just going to copy. Squarespace will let me copy that text. Currently, it's got this expand to container overlaid on top of it. I'm going to get rid of that. Just get rid of the extra spacing in between each of those lines as well. And let's have a look. So we can see the text is left aligned, and then we've got the dotted line to the right. Although I quite like the title over 3 different lines. And we can also see here that we've got this vertical line. Like, crazily enough, Squarespace does not have a vertical line option. At the moment, if I go to line, we've got some basic align it to the top, bottom, or center option, duplicate it, pin it, which is a feature I'm not going to go through at the moment, or delete it. There is no vertical option. So instead, I'm going to go to add a block, and I'm going to add a shape. First thing you'll notice is The minimum shape width is the width of the block. So again, no simple resolution for this. But this is where the custom code comes in. So what I'm going to do first is align this text block to the center. So the top and the bottom is going to be uniform to the text. And I'm going to add our button, and then we'll add the custom code right at the end. So I'm going to align that there. Now I'm going to switch to mobile view. Forgot to mention that we're going to get all of these working wonderfully on mobile as well. If I choose to align the block to the middle, that means I can extend the text block to the top and the bottom of that line. I can now choose to put the button in this section here, or if it's a bit cramped, I can decide to change it up a bit and go for a different layout on mobile. For example, putting the line to the left of our area. Bear in mind, it won't have a full block behind it. Right. We've got the layout as we want. We're going to have the line coming down here. So let's now use a Google Chrome extension that I use quite a lot, which is this one here. So if you look for Squarespace block identifier, this one's called Find Squarespace IDs. You can just copy the section block or the individual block. So here we can see this block is applied to the title, this one for the button, so it must be this one for that block. Now I can use / on the keyboard and do a quick search for CSS, which will bring up the custom CSS window. Much quicker to find it this way. And now I can paste that block in, and we can see I put a curly bracket. And this is as technical as we're going to get. So you could just freeze this frame once I've typed it out and just copy this in. So border, right, probably about 2 pixels or 3 pixels. So 2px, then dotted, I believe, but you could use solid or dashed. And we're going to make sure it's white. Alternatively, instead of white, you could use the hexadecimal value with a hashtag, and then FFF is for white. I also use this ColorZilla Chrome extension, which allows you to pick a color from the page. So if we wanted it to tie in with the brand colors on the site, we could certainly do that. And actually, let's just demo this now as well. So if I pick color from page, I wait till the swatch in the toolbar that's popped up changes to the gold, this section here. And it's been a bit finicky. Come on, work. I think it's partly because I'm in the Squarespace admin area. There we go. It's copied that to the clipboard now. I've also got this toggled on still, the block identifier, so I'm going to just remove that. And now that color should be copied to the clipboard, so we can paste it in as our dotted line. We can actually see it in place. I want to get rid of the background. Try background none. My CSS code is a little rusty, so if I done this display none, that's obviously getting rid of the border as well. But I believe that now we've added the custom code, I can simply just go to the block settings itself and make the background color transparent. Double click on the shape, and then we go to the color swatch option. I think what I'm going to have to do is choose a color, and then drag the opacity down. So that uses less custom code, which is better, and we can see that dotted line. The only problem is we can't see it very well. So we've got a couple of different options here to jump back into the CSS. And we can change it to 3 pixels, make it a bit stronger. And we could then decide to put it back to FFF, which is white, to make that a little bit stronger. And I'm probably going to go with maybe 4 or 5 pixels. There we go. 5 pixel dotted line. And now we've got our divider in place. We're already 12 minutes in and doing one layout. Trust me to pick one with custom code to start with. But that's how it looks on desktop view. If I switch to mobile view, we can see the line now is on the left-hand side, so we're still making a use for it. And there we go. That's our first layout. Now we're going to start speeding up some time. Because for the second one, we can just add a little bit of content to this. That should be easy enough to do. So let's edit. I'm just going to add a blank section in between. Edit this, make it really small. just so we've got a divider so we can easily see the sections apart. And I'm going to do the same. In fact, I don't need to do that. I can just duplicate this one. So we're going to use this as the basis to save me having to go through adding the photo again, etc. We can just use that one. And we're going to duplicate the spacer block as well. Bring that down one. So now we've got our 2 hero sections. I'm going to leave that one there just as a reference point. What we can see here, because I've duplicated the section, the dotted lines disappeared, because that will have a new ID block now. So instead of fixing it again, we don't need it for this layout, so we can get rid of that. We're going to need our call to action button. And I'm going to see, can I flip the image? I think we can. So go to the crop option. Yeah. I can flip it to the left, meaning we can have our text block to the right. Now if we look, we've got this in a block section. So we're going to need a sentence. Something like this will be perfect to go with this block here. So I've got 2 ways of doing this. I can either have 2 different text blocks and then add a shape behind them, or I can add them to one. For the sake of this one, now you shouldn't do this because you should get your heading styles correct across the board. So I'm being a bit naughty with this here. But what I'm doing is changing that to a heading 2 just so it's not going to be so large on there so we can get our text block to fit. But what you can do is in the site styles here, you can change your heading sizes to match what you want. But this means that we can get this all in one block. And with this layout selected by clicking on it once, if I click on it twice, it goes into the text editor, which I don't want. I just want the block editor. So click on it once, go to this option to edit the background, and now I can add a background. Now I can add padding to that block, and I'm going to go for large, but you can fine tune the size of it as you want. And there we go. Not too far off that design. So here we've got more spacing, but that's just how it's set up in the section editor. We can do that if we want to increase it, to increase more spacing between each row, but I'm quite happy with that being quite compact. Likewise, if you wanted it so the button just feeds off directly off the bottom or with a 1 pixel border, once again, we can just adjust it. So let's just put it for a 1 pixel border. A really subtle dividing option between those blocks. That's what I can do. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This one here should be quite straightforward. We can get rid of the background block and restructure this, but this time we're going to set it up over 2 different text blocks and then move the button to the right. What I haven't done though on this one, which I need to do, is just check this on mobile before we go and move on to the next one. So here we've got some choices in terms of how we want it laid out. So we can go for this option, but if we're feeling that a lot of our image is being misplaced, we can put the button to the right, and also we can decide to move it down a little bit, or move it to the right and make that deliberately more compact. It's really up to you how you go about adjusting it to mobile, but we'll go with that. Always good to adjust your mobile effects as you go through it, because if you ever save it as a favorite, that save section feature is my favorite. I love it. But if you save it and then use it on other pages, it means you have to fix the mobile view on every single page. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to duplicate that one, bring that block down again. We've got 3 different heading hero styles now. This time, let's go for this structure. So I'm going to duplicate this block to start with. Should have got rid of the background actually before doing that. That would have helped. Yeah, so I'll get rid of that. I'll duplicate this. This is where I'm going to split up the title and the text block below. This title now, I'm going to change it to a heading 1. I'm going to bring it down here ready. This one, I'm going to try paragraph 1, but I might have to go bigger again. And we're almost certainly going to have to go with a stronger backdrop. Because a lot of the content's weighted to the left, I think what we can do is definitely go with a stronger overlay and flip that photo once again. So edit that photo, flip back to where it was. I'm going to increase the overlay opacity so everything's easier to read. If it's looking a little bit washed out, we could try the bright 1 color. And everything's coming out gold now, which is probably a bit much, but there's a quick fix that we can do to get that back to where we want it to be. Okay, so we can either have that on 1 or 2 lines. I think I quite like that on 2 lines. And we can adjust then the starting point for the content. So we can have that to the top. And now we're going to put the line in to see how everything balances out. So this line will go across the page, full width. We can see the grid doesn't go right the way to the edge of the screen. This is the content section. We lose control over the exact width of it the moment we snap it over to the edge. Now we can bring that line across the entire page, and then it will just extend either side. To make that slightly different to the other example, which stops either end, let's just keep that in place. Why not? Okay, so now we've got some decisions to make. Try and get it as good a spacing as uniform as we can. So we'll go with that. Then bring this to the bottom. And the one thing I want to do now is just tidy up the spacing a bit. And what I'm going to do is get rid of the fill screen option. That makes us in full control now over the spacing at the top and bottom of this hero section. So we can decide where this content section comes in, and we can move our elements accordingly. There's no additional padding up top and bottom. Slightly more advanced option in Squarespace, but it gives us really good tight control over our layouts. What I do now is double click on this, Command A to select all, and here I'm going to change that text to white. And I'll probably change the text to white for the heading as well. So we've got a nice balance now between the gold and the white. The line doesn't jump out quite as much. We could, of course, bring this back in, or we can have it cutting off on the left and going out to the edge on the right. Word of caution, if we were to bring the button over, we can see we've now got no control over its width. And if we were to change the width of the browser, we'd lose control of that even more. Let's go for maybe tertiary button style. No, we lose too much of that. Secondary, I think, is just the underline. So I think primary is probably the right one for that. Okay, so quite a narrow hero section, but it works quite well with that photo. Let's save as we got and just pop over to mobile and just fix this on mobile view. So we can see here there's quite a bit of work to do. And once again, we've got autonomy over what we want to do with this. Many designers have switched to mobile first, but because we get more editor options, styling options on desktop view, that's probably why I wouldn't recommend editing in mobile first on Squarespace. But the beauty of this is you can edit separately. So at very least, mobile gets equal weighting. I'm really happy with that. Jump back to desktop view. Let's try and do at least one more. This one here, Polaroid type effect with a photo over top of a photo. This one could be interesting. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this one for this, I think. And just bring this blank section down. So we're going to start with a different starting point here. This is actually quite different in terms of how it's laid out. So I'm going to use this photo twice. I'm just going to duplicate it just for now, put it all the way across the background. So I snap it out to the edge. We're not using a background image in this section. Take it all the way to the edge and then all the way to this edge. For some reason, it's a real pain sometimes to get it to go all the way across. So my little hack for that is to drag it, he says, drag it to the right side first. Now drag it to the left, and for some reason it seems to work that way around. Not a major drama, once you know how to work it. Next up, we've got a shape. So let's add our shape block, and it's just a simple standard rectangle. And we might change this to the gold color to match our styling. And we've just got the title on this one, so no call to action button. No line needed either. So this has still got the text expansion option, which we can get rid of. And now we can put this over one line. Okay, we're getting there now. Now I'm going to overlap this image. It's underlapped it to start with, so we just need to move forward or press Shift and up to get that to the front. Just get this title down and out of the way first so it's not overlapping. Okay. Issue now is not letting me select that title for some reason. There's no logical reason why that's happening. It's probably just a little bug, which means I need to just give the browser a quick refresh. So making this image width, you can choose, of course, what the width for the Polaroid style image, but we want it nice and uniform either side, so I'm going with 3 grid columns that way, 3 that way. And then when you get it right, it rewards you with those gold lines. Think of them like gold stars being dished out by Squarespace. So I've got 2 options here. I can either overlap the image, which works, or I could change the gutter height settings here. I could put that down to 0 and that would work too. But I'm going to leave that because that does the job for me. Because I can't select that text, I'm going to save. Give it a full browser refresh. Yeah, I think we're going to be nearer 30 minutes than 15 minutes on this one. In fact, we already are. But we're having fun, hopefully. There we go. So now I can edit that text, move it around. And if I want it to fit a bit closer to that block above, I could increase the gutter height, or I could just make that a little bit bigger and align it to the center. And that's something I'm quite happy with. So all I'm going to do now is just take this background image, replace it, so we don't have the same image on both. Again, let's see if we can find something in the library that will do the job. There's quite a nice overlapping Polaroid effect. And now we can decide to move these up a bit more so we don't have so much empty space further up. And it's really up to you how much you bring it up into the section above. That background image is to provide a bit of texture and a bit of intrigue to the layout, so we don't need that to be front and center. It's all about this image here, which we're drawn to. One relatively new feature in Squarespace is we can apply an overlay effect on individual photos now. And we can choose a custom color, so go to black. I'll go for that gray, and I'm going to go for somewhere just about 60%. So it really does apply more focus now to the image that overlays it. Bring them up a little bit more. And just a bit of housekeeping at the bottom to get rid of all of that extra space. So from here, we've got 2 different options. We can either have the section below with the same background color, or we could expand this and add our text, for example, signposting into this section here. I tend to like to break down Squarespace sites into multiple sections, so that's what I'm going to prepare for here. But I'm quite happy with that one. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 so far, and I think we're going to do 1 more after this to wrap up. I'm going to save this layout, jump out of it, and we're going to just check it on mobile. This will need a bit of work on mobile, because Squarespace won't quite know what to do with it. We can allow a bit more height on this one, and the image is going to come across to the edge of the 24-column grid, or 12 on mobile, I believe. Yeah, it halves it on mobile. Move that there. We can go a little bit deeper with the photos. And the way that that goes freshly baked bread on one line works really well on mobile. Bring this up. A little bit of jiggery pokery to get it as we want. And we can set the position, top, middle, or bottom, separately on mobile and desktop. I don't believe we used to have the chance to do that, but that seems to be an addition with Squarespace and a much welcome one as well. So that works quite nicely there, the way the background almost seems to blend in. And we've got that line there, which still does its job, just to add a bit of intrigue to the design. Okay, back to desktop. Let's do our final one to wrap up. Let's go take a look. Okay, similar to the last one, so we're going to be better off just replicating the one we've just done. And now we've got 1 background image and like a grid gallery of 3 images going across. This one should be quite straightforward to do. So I'm going to duplicate this section because it's the closest one we got. I'm going to duplicate this blank section. Give us a bit more breathing space. Okay, first up, get the image roughly to where I want. I can use Command C and D on a Mac, or Command D on the Mac, should I say, to duplicate those layers. I'm going to bring them down. I'm going to get rid of that background shape. And now I'm going to bring that text block over top. And so this one will be quite quick. Let's see what else we can do with this, because this is maybe a little bit too strong in the background. We could try some image effects. Maybe add a parallax on it. But what I think I'm going to do is edit this photo itself. And let's go to 16:9, get it cropped in roughly to where we want. So I'm going to have the bread cutting off from the top and coming in at the bottom with nice rounded edges. Then I go to the settings, and this time I'm going to take the saturation right down. The brightness right down. And the highlights, make them less obvious. So we're going for a moodier color format for this now. This will hopefully make it less washed out with the overlay, but also make it blend to the background better. You can see it's not as bright now behind the text. And we can go to the design option once more. We can really ramp up the overlay effect so it doesn't start clashing and fighting with the three images below. Now these images will be better if we replace them with different images in each one. So this is good if you need to tell a story over multiple images. And it helps if the photos are more part of a theme than maybe what I've got here. So I've got to check now that these are centrally aligned. It's got to work into the 24-column grid. So this format works quite well where we've got the extra spacing in between. But what we can do now is go into the section and remove the gutter width down completely to bring them just a little bit closer together. Don't have to do that. Finally, I'm going to fix this one on mobile, then we'll wrap this up. I'm just going to make these photos a little bit more like 16:9 ratio really. And we can see the gold lines on the outside. That means we've got it right. So we're once again rewarded with Squarespace version of a gold star. I'm going to put that text in below. In fact, what I'm going to do is move it above. So I hold Shift and select 3 photos so I can move them all down together. Now I can move the title up to the top. If it will let me move it. And I've got decisions to make. Shall I make it more centrally aligned like that? Yeah. I think I will. Okay, so the parallax effect works nicely on mobile and desktop. We've got this grid gallery effect. Then if we look at some of the others and how they're working on mobile, I think we got through quite a shift there. Hope you found this interesting. The next tutorial I'll be creating will be looking at the next series of layouts and how we can build them. If you start to feel that there's a repetition going through this, great. That's exactly what I want, because so much of working with Squarespace is about getting used to the automisms, the flow that you go through as you start creating different layout designs. And every single one of these is built on Squarespace, and the only thing that needed the custom code was that darn first layer that we did. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for the next one.